What's going on, Soul Tribe? I salute the divinity in you, and welcome to the Chariot Friends. Justin here, and how you feeling? You ready to get fired up? The moon is in Sag. I like a good moon in Sag. I think that is a really exciting time, one, to think about not just, Sagittarius could be like the adventurers of the zodiac, but I think that too, they're the mutable fireness. Think about where the wheel is evolving towards. When we get to a certain peak, where's that next step going to be? What's the next chapter going to look like? That brings the sense of excitement and enthusiasm for the next. And we'll get into all that here in a moment. But if you're new here, again, my name is Justin. And know that when you're coming across this video, you're in sync with the moon, and who doesn't love that? But this is also a place for you if you happen to have Cancer in your placements, Sun, Moon, Rising, maybe Jupiter, wherever, this one's for you. Or if you just happen to, we all have a Cancer section in our chart and have a moon placement and need to know what that moon's doing. So this can benefit from anybody just to sync up with the moon. But I also do tarot cards, friends. Based on that lovely luminary, the good old moon. Let me tell you something. I might post a picture with it. I got a great view of the full moon that was in Scorpio, and I was like, let me bust out I got a telescope, and man, I must have stared at the moon for an hour. It was a treat. Get out there and look up at that sky. Sometimes I think, who needs TV with what's going on in the sky all the time? And I'll talk about what sign it's in, what phase it's in, and when it's going void of course, just all those lunar shenanigans. And just so you're all aware, this is a general reading, not a one-to-one, so take what fits into your story, discard the rest, and everything will be dope. Now, let's jump into it, because that really got me energized. That was something else. But before we get into all the talk about that great old moon, depending on when you're watching this, happy Mars Day. Mars is associated with Tuesdays, and this is an energizing type of day. I find that this can be this is like I've always mentioned, this is one of the days where I do just where I work out, get the body moving, get the energy pumping. Mars can deal with even too just like your desires, your passions, so this could be a great time to do something that maybe you've been putting off, maybe you've been wanting to start a new hobby, or maybe you've wanted to partake on a new venture, whatever this is, something that maybe even requires a bit of courage, a bit more assertion. Mars, and I find that Mars, even Mars hours, can be really great for that as well. Because when it's not a Mars days, I just don't not move the body the rest of the week. I try to hit them up in a Mars hour too, just like, oh, you know what, you're right. I've been kind of sitting around a little bit. Let's go for a walk. So that could be a great way, I find, of working with just like the planetary days and times. But another thing that I kind of like doing with these days is think about just like my relationship with Mars, not just like where I have it natally, but how do I deal with planets that are transiting and forming aspects with my natal Mars, but also how do I do when Mars is forming aspects to my natal placements. Mars is actually going through Leo right now, depending on when you're watching this. It's activating a lot of my Leo places, actually coming up on my ascendant. And I've just been thinking about the things that have been, how I've noticed like how certain things like either up the body, the energy of the body, or lower it. And it's just like, maybe making those kind of adjustments in time, making more stuff for different types of movement. So I just was looking into, I did a Pilates thing the other day, and I was just like, man, I need to get back more to doing some of that. That felt like really good. So just like little things like that can be great ways of working with those kind of planetary energies. But let's go ahead and get into the lunar shenanigans, because depending on when you're watching this, the moon entered into Sagittarius on the 13th of May at about 1:35 a.m., and that's going to be Pacific time, and we're in a waning gibbous phase. I've been kind of thought to get a little idea here to kind of switch things up a little bit. I'm going to pull up a chart to talk about this lunation. So you have here the lovely moon chilling here at 0 degrees of Sagittarius when it first entered into Sag. And when you think about Sagittarius, they're ruled by Big Papa Jupiter, and they're the mutable fire sign, and they're active or yang in nature. And like I said, with having that Jupiterian influence, Sag is like the expansion of the will, seeing where, like, again, as you go get more in your alignment and get into your soul calling, just the doors that opens up for you, and just like how you want to, again, like it's never like satisfied with just like enough, with just like the base level. Sag, I think, wants more, doesn't want to get to this place of, I don't think I've ever heard a Sag who's bored. And so That's something where you could just be thinking about, I think with Sagittarius, think about ways that you can move the energy. What are some exciting things, and see where the moon is moving into, what chart or what house the moon is moving into over these next couple of days, to get an idea of how this energy may activate for you. For example, here this is safe. So someone with an Aquarius rising, the moon would be activating your 11th house. So this could be a great time. Maybe you want to go hang out with some friends. Maybe you want to do some kind of like group activities. That could be doing something that might feels good. Maybe you're thinking about your future. What are some ways that you want to expand on your journey here? And the moon's going to be forming like quite a few, about 4 aspects with the celestial bodies here. It's going to start off forming some really nice movements here. We got this lovely trine that's going on. They're coming into orb. Here I'm talking about Venus and Mars are getting ready to form a trine together, but then the moon will hit up Venus first and then hit up Mars. And so there's a lot of active movement right now, really kind of looking at to the things that you want to initiate, the things that you want to attract with Venus. And then Mars is giving you that energy in Leo to sustain that energy, and the moon's feeling through that. So this could be a great time again for starting up some kind of activities. Maybe you're getting ready to do something with like a relationship possibly, or whatever that might be. This could be a really great kind of supportive energy for that. Now, as the moon kind of moves along in Sag, eventually it's going to reach some harder aspects here. We have a opposition with Big Papa that's going to be happening. Actually, let me write that one. Let's do that one in red here. But it's going to be forming an opposition with Big Papa, which is the ruler of this moon right now, is Jupiter. The moon is looking to that there. And Jupiter is getting ready to slowly kind of wrapping up its time up in Gemini here. And Jupiter in Gemini has been bringing a lot of mental energy that's been going into the mix. And I would just say here with the opposition, you just want to look to see maybe where you've been a little scattered, if the brain's just been kind of going, because that's the thing where Jupiter's in detriment in Gemini. And that just means that it's uncomfortable, like in this energy, because Jupiter wants to expand, but Gemini wants to see not just the big picture, but every little detail in between that. And that way you could find yourself just kind of going on a bit of a spiral there. So if you've noticed that there's been a lot of active energy that you've been just feeling kind of pulled to and fro, it's just kind of an opposition is an invitation to just kind of like, okay, reassess, readjust. Like, maybe I have been spreading myself a little too thin. And I think that's something that's going to come into when we're talking about your general energy as well. But the last little aspect that the moon is going to form is a square with Saturn. And that'll be the kind of the last conversation that it has with the celestial body before it moves into Capricorn. And so when we're thinking about a square with Saturn, you want to be responsible with the energies and how you've been changing, how you've been growing. Saturn wants discipline, wants structure. And especially in Pisces, we're talking between the will with like Sagittarius and the fire, and the emotions and things that we're feeling with Pisces. And so, if you've been feeling like you've not been as responsible with your energy as you could be, whatever that is, maybe not been getting enough sleep, maybe you've not been dealing with certain emotions, maybe there's been whatever that's not moving the body, I think that this can be a great time to make those adjustments as you see fit here. So you see we got a couple, like, overall, I think this next couple of days here with this moon is movement, a little bit of trickiness at a little harder aspects at the end there, but I think that it's ultimately going to always, the celestial bodies are trying to lead us to that higher good there. So that's just something to think about. But I'm gonna pause this for one moment. All right, we're back on. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have for the lunar shenanigans there. And I would say too, I guess one last thing. Just like when you're dealing with the aspects of the moon, because the moon moves really fast, so the sign it changes signs or moves a degree every 2 hours. So if you want to get an idea of like how to track the lunar transits, just pay attention to where you have, especially if you have a lot of mutable placements. That's going to be like Virgo, Pisces, or Gemini. That moon's going to activate, form more harder aspects aspects, whereas opposed to if you have like Leo or Aries, that's going to be some trine, some movement that's happening. Again, with all my Leo placements, I'm here for a moon and Sag. But also too, if you have like any sort of air placement, I'm thinking more specifically Aquarius and Libra, those are going to be some opportunities maybe that can open up for you with this lunation there. So just some things to kind of play around with when you're working with these energies. But let's go ahead and get into your general energy of the day. A little bit of cutting energy. You got hexagram 31, which is cutting. And this is lake over mountain. And if you want to look a little bit more into these hexagrams, I just put like one of the sites that I get the kanji from to get, to make these slides. But there are all sorts of resources out there to check these lines. And you got changing lines. The changing lines that you got for the hexagrams were line 3 and line 5. So that's definitely something too. If you want more information, check out those 2 lines in particular for this hexagram. But let's go ahead and get into this thing. And I'm just even thinking about that, just like that imagery, just like on the, that's interesting. Like it's like I just got an image of like the mountain and the lake at the base of it, but that's just neither here nor there. But we'll start with line 3, because this one talks about cutting the thigh, guarding the wound, going brings woes. Now, on a just like a little like a more kind of a physical level, I would just be mindful about moving the body or like pushing the body more than it's ready for. Let's say if you got like some sort of injury, let's say maybe we pulled something, twisted something, tweaked something or whatnot, I'd be mindful about pushing too hard, especially if you have like maybe like a 9 to 5 and you're thinking like, oh, I got to do this thing. But what's going to happen if you don't take that time, you push the body too hard, then the body will sit you down. And that's not to get you scared or anything, but you know what happens if you go, like, let's say if you don't go on enough sleep, for example, you end up making mistakes, things happen, accidents happen. So that's just one energy that I would just say being mindful of there. And just even thinking too, kind of like when we were saying that, talking about that aspect between the moon and Saturn, if there's something that you're healing through right now, I would be mindful about pushing a subject as far as like more so like if you're processing something maybe cut really deep, maybe you had a conversation or maybe there's been some sort of realization and maybe just kind of in the feelings about it. Sag can be hot. I've had so even though I like the moon in Sagittarius, I've had times where I've been Sag will bring out some Sag brings out that fire, and yeah, it can get really reactive sometimes, and it can react in a really big kind of way. That's, I think, something with the moon and Sag that you have to be that you want to try to pay attention to, be mindful of. So I would just be with this one, just being mindful about pushing things like that. And I don't think that it's going to be something too where it's going to come out of left field. It's like, I think if you just think about, let's say, like, again, let's go back to the sleeping thing. If you've been sleep deprived and let's say maybe you drive a truck, maybe you might need to take that time off and get some rest, because all that's going to do is put you and other people in danger. So that's just a very basic thing. It's not something I think it's just like a necessarily a curveball that's just going to come out of left field here. So, and I'm even getting the two, maybe with others, if you've noticed some people are maybe in a sensitive place, probing might not be the best energy right now. Just like, sometimes I think people react not because they're upset, but just because they're in a vulnerable state. And sometimes I think that brings out more of the primal instincts out of people. So that's just another message that's coming through here. Now let's talk about line 5, because this one is cutting the back, no regrets. Now, it's an interesting contrast between these two, because this, to me, if you do, let's say, for example, if you do end up pushing through something, and let's say things go awry, I wouldn't take this as something that you just beat yourself on. It's just like, let's not get to where we regret this thing, where where we beat up on ourselves or whatever this might look like. It's like, okay, what did I learn from this? I got a big gash in my back. Now, so I gotta deal with that. I gotta process this thing, and there's no sense in, regretting this. Like, let this be a place where, like, oh, okay, now I have more awareness. Like, I pushed it, I tried it, and maybe it didn't, and then I got that pushback. So that's just something there with that cutting the back. But I also think too with this one, there's like it's giving me almost like a 10 of Wands energy, where there may be a situation where you're needing to push the energy a little bit harder, to push, but not to, again, not to the point where we're putting ourselves in detriment, but just like requiring something. It's like when I think about like working out, there are times like when I go to like lift certain weights and I'm just like, man, okay, like this is going to be heavy, this is going to be heavy, but at the same, I'm not just focusing on the heavy. I'm like, okay, you know what, I'm doing this because this is going to make the body stronger. This quote unquote pain, this discomfort is getting this, is introducing this gain, and that's like, that's just something I think that it's like, it's like not it's like not regretting pushing oneself a little bit, because in pushing yourself you might be a little extra sore than normal. You're like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't do that, I'll never do that again. It's just like, no, you know what, maybe I pushed a little bit hard, but I learned the limits of the body. There's just something I think there in that as well that's kind of worth exploring, depending on what you're coming to with this, for this reading here. So again, just apply it to your situation as this makes sense, but we'll get a little bit more as we get into the tarot here. But one last thing, actually, I'm going to circle back to this is what happens when I switch things up. I'm going to, it's like, oh, I got to mention about the waning gibbous. The waning gibbous phase. Going back to the lunar shenanigans real quick. The waning gibbous phase is that phase right after we got from that full moon. We've got the insights that we had, from whatever thing that we were starting up at the beginning of this lunar cycle, and now we're really kind of seeing it for what it is. Things have really kind of come to fruition here, and now we're on this place where we're just like we're sharing what we've learned from this thing. We're really, there's a new awareness that's coming through, and now it's just like, okay, let's say for example, if you were trying to, again, with the workout one's just like an easy one. If you were thinking like, okay, I'm gonna lift like 50 pounds, and then you get to try, you've been working on this thing and you only get to like maybe 30, and it's like, that's not a defeat. It's just like, okay, let me reevaluate my expectations a little bit. Maybe I need to push this another lunar cycle or two. This is going to be something that I'm continue to grow, but there's going to be a point where I'm going to be lifting 60. So the waning phase, I find, especially the gibbous, it's movement but in a different sort of way. Movement in a reevaluation, a reassessment sort of energies there. So, but all right, let's go ahead and move on over to the tarot here. But before we jump into that, these readings that I do, they're not gender-specific readings, so apply these energies to people as they make sense for your situations. And then I'm going to be talking about different topics, such as like really getting into like finances, medical, law, romance, but it's by no means professional advice. Seek out your doctors, your healers, your lawyers, your energy workers, therapists, all those good people doing that good work. So, but I'm going to be pulling 6 cards, and they're going to all cover different themes. And considering that you got changing lines for line 3 and 5, I'm going to get clarifiers for those cards. But let's go ahead and get into your first energy here, which talks about any sort of like short-term money matters or things along those lines. How you've been spending your money or your time. Oh, interesting. So you got the Fool in reverse here. In this, to me, one, I would be mindful as far as like any sort of reckless investments right now. I think that there is this one. I think it's like really kind of paying attention to divine timing, pay attention to the signs. It's one thing to be really excited about something, but it's like not letting the excitement override your common sense in a way. It's like, it's like, sure, you may want to, let's say, I'm going to go become the greatest doctor, and that's really exciting, but there's also a lot of work that comes with that. You got to learn that there's a number of hours that you got to get logged into. You're going to be in constant study, but that's not to let this be a deterrent as well, but it's just a look before you leap. I think with this Fool card here, but also even too, when thinking about how I said, like mentioning how you spend your time, that could be something too, where is the things that I'm putting my resources in, again, time included, how is that giving back to me? Is that something that is really going to be worth it in the long run, or do to continue doing this thing? Is this preventing me from different opportunities to go, you close up there, or like different doors to open up, is what this Fool card energy is giving me, because the Fool is can be represented as just the element of air. So I think it's even kind of checking about just like maybe like impulse control. Maybe you've noticed that you're one that just got been maybe just like mindlessly spending things. And it's one thing to like I'm all about treating yourself and whatnots, but if we're treating ourselves but we can't hold up to our responsibilities, like that's just something to kind of just pay attention to there when I'm getting with this Full energy, and not letting someone, there's a bit of a manipulation here. It doesn't necessarily have to be a harmful one, but maybe that someone's just trying to get you more hyped up about something than maybe it should. It just warrants maybe a bit more thought. Like you could be excited, but maybe do some research. Maybe if someone wants to get you on, like, hey, you want to invest in this thing or want to go half on with me with like doing like a house or like a timeshare. I don't even know if they still do timeshares, but like things along those lines. I would just pay attention to that as well. That's interesting. I'm getting a lot from this Full, even too paying attention to, because I just actually gotta like looking at paying attention to like scam emails, or like when before we go opening different links, and this could be from like messages that are about excitement, or even ones that try to do like a sort of like a panic, maybe sort of incite, like you only have, this is like your final notice, you need to do blah blah blah, click on this site, this, like just being mindful about that, just doing some research and things like that, especially if it, or just reporting it as junk or spam in the first place. So yeah. Chatty Fool. Now let's get into your next energy here, which talks about any sort of like medical matters, things along those lines. Let's see how the body's doing. So you have the Ace of Cups here. And one, this gives me this energy of needing to fill up your cups. Maybe putting some more love into yourself right now, and treating maybe yourself with some compassion. Even going back to your general energy. I was talking about like cutting the thigh, guarding the wound, going brings woes. This may be a time where you're just like, maybe you've been healing from an injury, and you're just like, how come I can't do this? Like, or the body, why aren't you doing what I want you to? Kind of demanding it, maybe forcing it. It's just like, that's not going to really accomplish anything. It's all it's going to do is just keep you in a rut and just keep you not feeling good. Just keeps the water stagnant in the way, or just like maybe even gets the water boiling. It exacerbates things, so that might be something. I'd even be mindful too, maybe even about pushing others, maybe understanding, it's one thing to help people stay motivated, but I think that it's like sometimes we got to meet people where they're at sometimes, and we can't, just kind of come with that compassion. It's like, okay, well, if you don't want to do this, like let's say you have a family member who is needing to get movement, but they're not doing it. Maybe they need to do 2 hours a day, but they're like, that's too hard. It's like, okay, well then let's do 30 minutes. And then let's do that for a couple weeks. And let's build up on that. And we can do it together. Like coming in with a bit more love, invitation, something, meeting them kind of where just meeting them where they're at. And it's just like, can we make this, let's compromise in some sort of way. We can't make people do anything at the end of the day, but just maybe just that approach, maybe they'll be open to for that drink, so that might be something that's coming through there. But I'm getting just a general thing of just like treating just the body with more love. And this doesn't have to be just physically, maybe you're needing to deal with some of the cups are dealing with emotion. So maybe there's some emotional things that you're moving through right now that's maybe translating out in the body, so that might even be something to look out there. If you notice like certain things have changed, well, what's been going on? What has been happening that may be a signal, the body's trying to signal you in some sort of way there, just needing a little more kind of TLC. That's what this Ace of Cups is giving me. And I'm even thinking too, I know that's another one, making sure to hydrate. That might be something too, maybe a little extra hydration is going on. Mars is in Leo right now. Mars can be a drying, hot energy. So, and then like, just inflammation. is something that Mars is about. So you're just taking, making sure to just like, again, hydrate, moisturize, things along those lines. Maybe working with like seaweeds are really great for just like kind of hydration, or maybe working with like aloe, or those are just some things that are just kind of popping in my head right now. Maybe if you need to maybe even taking like a calming bath, maybe putting some like essential oils or something along those lines to just kind of help soothe the body a little bit. Goes a long way. All right, let's get into your third card here, which talks about any sort of legal matters or social affairs. Let's see what's going on there. So you got the Seven of Swords here. And the Seven of Swords can be very busy energy, very busy mental energy. This could be where maybe you have some legal things that you're or you got some things that are going on in the background and you're trying not to bring that stuff into work. It could be really divided mind here. The person's going forward with this in this picture here, but is looking back at something. So that's one energy that's coming through there, making sure that you may need to kind of arrange your thoughts, or maybe arranging your time a bit differently right now so that the energies are not so scattered, finding different ways of going about things here with the Seven of Swords. Tactics, can be a very energy with this. And I'm even getting to, if you're in some sort of like, it's giving me like you're not necessarily in a legal, things haven't gotten to a legal thing yet. It's giving me like, let's say for example, if you're in an argument with a neighbor, maybe there's something that's going on with like a land issue, maybe they're building something, or there's something here about maybe before we escalate a situation, it's just like maybe we can try going in with a bit of a more compassionate touch, where it's just like, hey, like this is starting to creep over here, like we've known each other for a little while. Like just like acknowledging the relationship. Like, let's just try to do the neighborly thing. We can be civil here. We don't, we have to live, or at least we don't have to. We're choosing to live next to each other right now. So it's like maybe there's a different way where we can find where like a happy medium is something that is really kind of coming up for me there, depending on any sort of like legal things. Maybe there's something that's going on with like a business partnership or something like that. Just like finding like we're just like revising stuff right now. I'm also getting to this sort of like energy of this, but kind of being maybe split between different groups right now. Maybe you're kind of holding a lot of thoughts. And it gives me there might be like a little bit of tension. Maybe there's like a certain, let's say for example, maybe like a friend group, you got two people maybe that are arguing or something like that. And you're kind of the go-between, or kind of like the mediator there. You're holding all these thoughts here, and it's just like, how do you keep you may even need to remove yourself altogether. That might even be something that's a tactic where it's just, I'm not going to be involved. Like, y'all need to work this out. This going back and forth thing, me hearing about the problems of one another is not fixing the problem. So it's like, maybe we need to get together and have like a sit down possibly, and maybe you can act as a mediator, or that might even be something maybe you need to, if this is between you and someone else. Maybe this is fine, you might need a third party on a situation here. Maybe they could find some kind of like alternative that everyone is, if not happy with, at least content with. So but let's get a clarifier on that and get a little bit more with the Seven of Swords here. Interesting. Oh. All right, so you got the Wheel of Fortune in reverse, and yes, something feels like it's got the way that things have been flowing is not working. Maybe this could be the social environment that you're hanging with. Maybe and this might be too, maybe you're working on something, you're dealing with, it's like, how did I put this? It's like you're dealing with a situation. You got just like a bunch of plates or a bunch of things that are on your mind right now, and it's just like, how you're. It's really kind of throwing you out of whack maybe a little bit here, and so it's like what are some ways that you can get back into your flow, into your rhythm, as opposed to getting just kind of pulled around on the wheel here. I love that Big Papa came through here. Something to think about. Something's changing with that Wheel of Fortune too. And maybe it's flowing in a way, it's like you see, it's like you maybe see or sense or know how a situation is supposed to go. Maybe there again, maybe a business partnership is ending. Maybe you're just changing up how you're doing a certain thing. But it's just like we're still resisting that flow, even knowing what that means, because it's just like, oh, it's gonna be, it's just changes. Sometimes it's not always the easiest. So, but it's a necessary part of the process here. Whatever this change might be here. But let's go ahead and get into your fourth card, which talks about any sort of like marriage or romance matters, romantic matters, things along those lines. All right, so you got the Six of Pentacles here. You got a lot of lunar energy starting to build up here, because the Seven of Swords, that's the moon in Aquarius. This is the moon in Taurus. And this, to me, one, is just like paying attention to, in relationships, reciprocity with the Six of Pentacles. Does things feel imbalanced? Are we giving as much as we're receiving in a situation here? And that looks differently on everyone. How they're able to show up here. And it says that I'm not feeling anything necessarily contentious here. It just more so just feels like that, when you notice that there are certain relationships, that whether this be, especially like if you're, coming into like maybe a new romance, you notice that things are giving in a way, exploring that a little bit more, giving your energy that bit of time, or giving it that process there. But it's giving me this thing too. It's almost like wanting to do more for someone. Maybe there's been a lot of busyness that are going on. It's just like, hey, I haven't been able to be here for you. Like, what are some ways that I can, what are some ways that I can, that I can show up, for you possibly here, if you're in an existing relationship, or maybe you have a relationship that's forming. But especially in relationships that are, newer ones, pay attention to maybe how you would give and receive in the past, and what are some things that that were working, and what are some things that were needing of improvement there. So that just might be something where maybe with this Seven of Swords, maybe you're starting to notice some trends here. The love's not flowing like it could. It's not feeling like how it did in the beginning. And it's just like, what's that change? What's going on there? Paying attention, maybe to some kind of like some red flags, even that may be coming up, some warning signs, possibly here. But yeah, that's all I'm getting from that Six of Pentacles there. Something to meditate on. Now let's get into your next card, which talks about any sort of like immediately pressing affairs. All right, so you got the King of Swords in reverse here. And the King of Swords, this could be one that a situation. Oh, the King of Swords is giving a thumbs down. This could be something where, because the King of Swords in reverse can be a bit ruthless, can be a bit cold, and I'm getting here that whatever, if you have something that is pressing right now, making sure that we're going in with a level head with the King of Swords, that it's. It's like going back to, just kind of even going back to your general energy, the cutting the thigh and guarding the wounds. It's like if you it's interesting. It's like if you're feeling frustrated about a situation or there's been a lot of mental strife or something, this doesn't feel like the time to act right now. The King of Swords is one I definitely like. Any of the Swords family, you know, when they're in reverse like this, is being mindful of how your words are coming across, how your thoughts, you know, where that's have been going. You know, there may just need to be just more kind of attention to where you've been, where your head's been at as of late here. But let me get a clarifier with this King of Swords and get some details with that. Oh, interesting. All right, so you got the Nine of Swords here. And this is very, you know, the Nine of Swords can be anxious, you know, very stressed out energy again, but also very cruel, kind of cutting energy. And that's what I really feel with this King of Swords. It was like something kind of hot, kind of nasty that you know, like, be mindful of just like reactive conversation. It's like I said, the moon's in Sag, and Sag can be savage if you're not mindful. You know, I think that, you know, fire energy is not one to mess around with. But even air, you know, air is one that, yeah, once that energy manifests, you can't take that back. You know, so that might be something there too. But yeah, situation I think is definitely maybe needing a bit more thought, especially if you've been feeling like in a mental just kind of prison here, something along those lines, or maybe you're wrestling with some words that someone said, or yeah, it's a frustration that I'm feeling with this. Yeah, something is getting in the way because the Nine of Swords is one of the cards that are associated with that. That's the King of Swords is the kind of responsible for here. So the fact that that energy is highlighted there, yeah, I would just keep an eye on that. And sometimes too, maybe like I said, maybe there was something going on where maybe you're just needing a little bit more sleep, a little bit more TLC because the body's running ragged. Possibly you've been maybe pushing yourself in. So that's just something I think to pay attention to there with that King of Swords. All right. Let's get into your last card, which talks about the destiny or karma of a situation. I'm with that. So you have the Six of Cups here. You know, I think that with this one, this to me is giving, it's giving this feeling of, it's similar to like how the six of pentacles here, like maybe how you've been giving to a situation, or maybe even how you've been receiving, so you know, someone's information possibly here, how we've been it even gives me to, it gives me this energy of maybe just needing a bit, again, kind of going back even to that Ace of Cups here, even giving a bit more time for yourself, and even like those that you're sharing your energies with. Yeah, I'm not getting a whole lot with this Six of Cups here. And you know what? Maybe what this is, what I'm kind of giving this to is like they're in this very safe space. You know, these children here, and they got someone guarding the doors. And I think that there's something here that learning how to create a space for maybe different conversations, especially, kind of with looking back at that King of Swords, clarified by the Nine of Swords here, and even going to the Seven of Swords, you're finding a different way of maybe you're just interacting or, yeah, that's a very interesting energy. All right, but yeah, let's get some advice from Big Papa. All right, so you have the Seven of Pentacles in reverse, and let's switch back over. Because I think with the Seven of Pentacles here, it's giving me that maybe you've been, some advice is just like to look at, maybe any sort of like setbacks, maybe things that haven't been going right, where maybe we've been in our head about something, and it's just like, okay, this is what's going down. What do I need to do going forward in order to improve this thing? It's like making, almost kind of like a cutting your losses is a energy that's kind of coming through there. But it's almost even thinking too, when I was talking about when we're going through the healing process, it's almost giving me like a how long is something going to take, possibly. So that's something else that's just kind of coming through there. And I think it's just being patient with that process. That things are going to get back into the flow here, back to the flow here soon. And that might be even what's going back to the Six of Cups here. It's like things are going to, that ultimately taking care of these things are going to lead to stuff getting back to, coming back to the sense of not equilibrium, but where things are feeling just more and maybe enjoyable again. So that's very interesting. I think that's all I got for you there. Yeah, very fascinating reading here. But if you like that, if anything resonated with you, give it a thumbs up. And share this if you know somebody who's also now so look at that King of Sword, whatever. But yeah, give it a thumbs up, share this if you know somebody, get some nuggets of wisdom. And then subscribe there, you Wheel of Fortune. Hit that bell button, get notified of all these videos each day. And last few things here, if you want to work with me personally, and whether that be working with your natal chart, working with any sort of transits, or this could be you doing a tarot card reading, an I-Ching reading, whatever that looks like. Down in the description box is a link for the services that I provide, the prices for them, and then my email too, as far as like if you need to get in touch with me to ask any questions. Also, in the description box, there's a link for my other channel, Alchemist 8, where I do weekly videos that talk about the different planetary transits and where the celestial bodies are moving, what sign they're in, and what houses are getting activated, so that you can check that out, see if they're forming any aspects and how to work with those energies. But I also do this little mini series as well that I have of different celestial bodies and different signs and different houses. So then there's definitely, they have them all situated by playlist. So definitely check that out if that's something that interests you there. But let's go ahead and get into your surprise card here. Oh, interesting. Number 10 energy talks about, that's Wheel of Fortune. But you got the service card here. And with this, that's interesting. I'm even getting kind of pulled back to that Six of Cups, where it's like, maybe again you've been, going to that Seven of Swords, maybe you've been pulled to and fro, been kind of like mental energies have been divided, and you haven't been able to do what that you feel called to do. There just feels like there hasn't been enough time in the day possibly to do. It's interesting. I got like to be of service to yourself, to do like your needs. Maybe you've been kind of catering to other people's needs, and that's fine to have that. But making sure to have that sort of balance as well, to that you're doing the things that stuff for your calling and things. And I'm even getting this like this how the Wheel of Fortune is in reverse. It's like getting called. It's like you're being beckoned or something. Being called to service. But to be more in alignment. That might be something there. Yeah, I keep getting pulled to the Six of Cups for just like, it's like doing things that will like making more time for things that you enjoy, maybe sharing in those things with others. That's another kind of interesting energy there too. I'm not gonna force that. But yeah, I think that's all I got for you there. So until next time, stay mindful out there. Keep eyes on that moon, because man, the moon's looking great. And I will catch you on the next one. Jupiter Day.